Hi, and Happy New Year, and welcome back to Be Still and Know. Um, you can't see me if you're listening to the radio show, but I was having some audio difficulties before, and so now I have a new headset. So I look all official in my capacity, I guess. I always laugh when I would watch like Dan Bongino and them doing their radio shows that they would then put on Rumble or whatever, and I would think, oh my gosh, they're wearing those silly headsets. But I guess they do help. They do, help with the sound. I think the sound quality may be better. I have to admit, I am suffering a New Year's cold, and so I may sound a little differently in my voice than normal, but I will get through this. I have to laugh because I'm wearing my top, but I'm wearing my pajama bottoms. And I think, well, I would fit in at Walmart. I could go straight to Walmart right now and nobody would even notice. And you won't even see them. So it's all good. Well, I hope all of you had a wonderful New Year's, Merry Christmas, and all of those things. I was thinking as you reflect on the new year, on the past, when you're in a new year and you reflect on that, then, you're looking back. And I'm thinking some people are saying, I want to get rid of 2023. 2023, I want to get rid of the last 3 years. I want to get rid of from a November debacle in 2020 until now. I mean, my goodness. I've said this before. The Lord spoke to me on 11/4 when I asked him what happened. And he said, your president, President Trump, won the election, but they stole it. And I allowed it because I need to expose all of the evil that is going on, not just in your country, but in other countries. And this is the only way to do that, to expose the evil. And so, I'm thinking, okay, expose the evil. And, by January 20th of 2021, President Trump will be reinaugurated or whatever. And of course, that didn't happen. Um, January 20th of 2021 was a very hard day for me. But knowing that President Trump had won and knowing that they stole the election and knowing that a lot of stuff is going to come out, it was very hard. It was very difficult to watch that man come, meaning the Biden, come out from the White House or get on Air Force One or whatever as if he won the election. It was very hard for me even now to listen to pundits and people who say President Trump lost the election, da 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 da. And this is why. You know, it's very troubling when you know the truth and you understand the truth, and yet you're living in a lie. And I'm not living the lie, but I'm living in the lie. In other words, I don't have a choice. I will not call that other person president. I will not refer to that other person as first lady. I will not call the other person vice president. And as the Lord said to me that day, many, many of your elections have been won this way. And so that I'm sitting there thinking, well, how many people have for how long has this been going on? I can look back in my lifetime and think, well, yeah, there was that election that was I wasn't sure about, and there was this person and that, all of us can look back and think maybe they really didn't win. Whatever election it was, gubernatorial election or senatorial or house member or something like that. I don't know how many, but when the Lord God says many, many, it's a lot. And so when he said he was going to expose the corruption, I was thinking, okay, and all this stuff started coming out about the 2020 elections and et cetera. And they started having these hearings in Georgia and I'm thinking, okay, they're going to overturn this thing. But the press, the powers that be, people like that have been suppressing this for a very long time. pushing it down. This didn't happen. This has been debunked. No, it hasn't been debunked. They just haven't allowed the truth to come out. They just have not allowed it. And it is out there. It is there. We see it every single day, some new case or some new situation. There was a woman who had charged and found guilty of voter fraud, and I don't remember where, but now she was elected to some elected position in the area that she was found guilty of. Why in the world would somebody be elected to a position of any elected position when they were found guilty of voter fraud? Give me a break. But when you look in light of all of the corruption, and I think to myself, good golly, is there any entity that we trust? No. The FBI, I remember when Barack Obama was president, and I was worried about what he would allow to happen to us in the United States. And I would go to bed at night and I would think to myself, well, James Comey is the director of the FBI, so I don't think he will allow anything bad to happen. Oh, yeah? Really? Well, we found out that James Comey is not to be trusted. But by the time we found that out, President Trump was president. And so I was thinking, well, President Trump is president, so he's not going to allow James Comey to get away with too much. Well, I mean, when you look at it, I'm thinking, good golly, I never thought that now the pharmaceutical industry is different, and the pharmaceutical lobby is a huge power in DC, as we have seen. And I was talking to somebody over Christmas about it. Our government had to buy back vaccines that they had bought. I mean, let me rephrase that. The Pfizer had to buy back from the government the vaccines that the government did not use. And they lost a bunch of money doing it. So there was an incentive for them to push these vaccines. They didn't want to lose money. And if you think about it, members of Congress who get all kinds of perks from big pharma, didn't want big pharma to lose money either. So it was in their back pocket, it was in their best interest, if you will, to push the vaccines. And then I found out, some of you may know this, that pastors of big churches were actually being paid to push the vaccines on their members of their churches. And to me, I mean, my goodness, how corrupt do you have to be? And they were saying things like Jesus would be vaccinated. The heck he would. He would not be vaccinated. He would just heal everybody who got sick. What in the world kind of sense does that make? That to me is this close to blasphemy. My goodness. And to find out that they were being paid to say this to their congregation? Huh. The corruption just goes so deep. And as the Lord told me, he said, the Bidens have done things so horrific that I'm not even going to tell you. Well, what we've seen is pretty bad. What has been seen already is pretty bad. What is coming must just be horrible. And I know some of it. We know some of it. But right now, they're doing everything they can. They're fighting to keep President Trump off the ballot. Why? Because they know he'll win. And they know that they cannot cheat in the same way that they did in 2020 because we are on to them. We have things. Mike Lindell, that goofy guy, and Greg Phillips and Catherine Egbert, which we will talk about in a minute, they have all kinds of things. They have organized all 50 states. They have all kinds of situations where you can watch in real time what's happening, where they can stay on top of the situation, where they can try to catch this fraud before it goes, the fraudulent votes beforehand. So they know that they're onto them. They know that we have things. They know that they can't do what they did before, which was horrendous. It took them so long to get enough votes to beat President Trump. One day, maybe, my prayer is, Lord, let us know what the actual vote was, the actual vote count, because I know that he won. And I think he won in states that nobody thinks he won in. But anyway, maybe one day we'll know the truth about the actual vote count. And so, um, they have all these protections, and so they know they can't cheat the way they cheated before. So they have to keep him off the ballot. They have to take away our right to make the decision that who we want. Look, there's a black leader in Chicago who just recently said, I'm turning Chicago red. Chicago is going to vote for Trump. Well, that's unheard of. And now New York is people in New York are beginning to say, yeah, we want Trump. President Trump is actually going to have an event in Madison Square Garden. It's going to be huge. And New Yorkers are tired of this stuff. Look at what they've done to New York City. Look at what they've done to these big cities. They're finally waking up and realizing that these Democrats are running their cities and running their states into the ground with all of this open border stuff. I mean, I found it kind of funny. A couple of weeks ago, whenever I don't remember the date, but Eric Adams, who had been complaining about, the administration sending all the migrants to New York City, and he was railing on Biden and the Biden administration and all of this. And then all of a sudden, some tax issue. He didn't pay taxes. He should have paid. Somebody did whatever comes up. And some sort of sexual allegation against him. And I said at the time, Eric, you should know better than to go after this administration because they will bring up dirt on you. And sure enough, that's exactly what they did. Well, just the other day, Eric Adams said that he was going to sue Greg Abbott. He's jumping in on a lawsuit that the White House is coming against Greg Abbott for what Greg Abbott is doing. And he said, Greg Abbott is breaking the law and yada yada. Well, Greg Abbott was interviewed on Newsmax last night, I guess, which would have been Thursday night. I'm doing this on Friday. Tomorrow is the anniversary of January 6th. So, Greg Abbott said, well, I was a judge in Texas and also the attorney general. And so I think I know a little more about the law than Eric Adams. And I'm sure he does. And he said Eric Adams is going to lose this lawsuit. And he named, all this stuff and the reason why, and that immigrants, the way it is now, immigrants have a constitutional right to move wherever they ask to go. And when they come across the border, they're asked, where do you want to go? And they'll say New York City or Boston, wherever. And so they get to go there. That's the way it is. Now it's like illegally crossing our border isn't illegal anymore. I mean, it's just kind of insane. But the White House, Eric Adams, they don't have a leg to stand on. Greg Abbott, I do believe, knows the law better than Eric Adams. Eric Adams, I don't believe is even an attorney. He was a police officer, and he knows, I'm sure, a lot about robberies and stuff like that. But the immigration laws, he probably doesn't know as much about. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, how that case comes about. I have no doubt that Greg Abbott is going to win. It's just going to take time and money and resources that he could be putting to other things. But it's gotten insane. And when you look back over the past several years when the idiots have been in the White House, I don't know how, this is everything is out of hand. Everything has gotten out of hand. And now one of the things they're trying to do, they're trying to say that President Trump took a lot of money from the Chinese when they stayed in his hotels. Well, yes, they stayed in his hotels, and yes, they paid whatever the going rate is to stay in a nice hotel. I've seen the Trump Hotel in DC. It is gorgeous. I mean, really, it's gorgeous. And so, yeah, and they would play at the golf course. But President Trump did not keep one dime of profit from any of the foreign people who stayed in any of his hotels. He gave all the now he paid his expenses, but all the profit was given to the government. Not only that, but everybody knows he didn't take a salary the whole time he was president. He was paid $450,000 a year, and every dime of that went to some um, one of the organizations, like Homeland Security or something. Every quarter, whenever he was paid, I think it was quarterly, and it was all turned over to a different entity every single every single quarter. He didn't take a dime, so he didn't take any salary. He turned over the profit. Now juxtapose that to idiot Biden, who gets a check for $40,000 from his brother, and they try to say it was to pay back a loan. Well, Hunter got $400,000, so this is 10% of the big guy. He's not paying back any loan. It's just him getting his cut. And you better believe there's pay to play. You better believe the Chinese are getting something for all this. You better believe that when all this money is sent to Ukraine, probably 10% of whatever we're sending Ukraine comes back to Joe Biden. That's I don't know that for a fact, of course not. But that's not a very far leap to make when he's getting all these checks. And we have proof of it. They're going to show us the proof. Well, there's the proof right there. So it's been disheartening in a way to not see all this stuff come about sooner, quicker. But God has said that He has people in every aspect of our government who are whistleblowers. And when the time is right, and one of the things that the time is waiting for is for us to wake up to see what's going on so that when these whistleblowers come forward with their stories, we will believe them and understand what has actually been going on. It's taken a long time for a lot of people to believe the truth. But just recently, I saw a black leader in Chicago saying Chicago is going to vote Trump. The black people are fed up with what's been going on in their city and therefore in their state. They're fed up with this stuff. And they see the value of President Trump had. They see that their financial well-being was better under him. They see that things were better under him. All of this stuff, all of this defund the police and all of this sanctuary city stuff is hurting them. And New Yorkers are saying the same thing. In fact, President Trump is going to have a rally in Madison Square Garden because they're seeing what's going on. They understand what is happening. They know it was better under President Trump. And so, one of the things that is happening is that blacks, Hispanics are all beginning to see this. And so they're all beginning to know we're going to vote Trump because the truth is coming out. The truth is out there. Speaking of New York, this whole thing with Eric Adams, I said a while ago when he uh, did his was railing about the White House. The White House is doing this. The White House is sending immigrants. The White House, da, da, da. And I said, "You better be careful saying that about the White House. They're gonna come after you." Well, they did. All of a sudden, he has tax evasion allegations and some sexual misconduct thing somewhere, and now, he's jumped on the bandwagon to sue Greg Abbott. Well, good luck with that. I mean, it's not gonna go anywhere. It's just it's just not. And at first, I have to apologize if I repeat myself. I had to I did 10 minutes of the show, and then something happened, and I had to start over. So I wasn't sure, did I already say that? Well, if I did, I'm sorry. It's not my age. It's just that I can't I don't know. I should have listened to the whole thing and gone, "Oh, I already said, that was that show," whatever. Anyway, all of that being said, sorry about that. Also, I have my New Year's cold. I have a very bad cold. In fact, when I leave here, I'm probably gonna go back to bed. So you can forgive me for any mistakes I make today. I don't know about any of the other weeks, but you can forgive me for anything I say today because of all of this stuff. I had to get these headphones because of the audio issues I was having, and then I got a message that there was something wrong, and I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna start over." So I don't know what's going on. But in any case, we have all these situations. We have all this corruption. We have all this stuff they're trying to attack President Trump with. And the other thing is Jeffrey Epstein. This whole thing about all these names on the list, you have to remember, and don't listen to the media. They don't know what the heck they're talking about. Or they do, and they're lying, and they know they're lying. They're being paid to lie, and they know it. Or there's bribery and blackmail. I've said that before. They're either being bribed or they're being blackmailed. That's just that's it. And that goes not only for people in Hollywood, it goes for people in the media, it goes for people in the Congress. They're either bribed or blackmailed. That's it. Period. Now some of them are actually that corrupt or that evil or whatever, but in any case, yes, President Trump may have flown on the plane with Epstein somewhere. But one of the things you have to pay attention to is not who flew on his plane, because RFK Jr. flew on his plane and he explains it, where he went, what he was doing, and why he went with it. President Trump may have flown on his plane. If he's on the flight manifest, it doesn't matter about that as much as it matters where they went. If they went to Epstein Island, that's one thing. If they went to New York or Paris or I don't know, that's a whole nother thing. I know President Trump has had a private plane since 1983, but maybe it was being serviced. I don't know. Maybe he was grounded for some reason. And that's exactly, RFK Jr. needed to get somewhere. Jeffrey Epstein happened to be going that place he went. I don't have a problem with that uh, until they found out what was going on. And President Trump had Jeffrey Epstein kicked out of Mar-a-Lago. It is a fact. He did. He tried to recruit one of President Trump's employees' daughter at Mar-a-Lago into his business, and that's when President Trump said, "Okay, you're out of here." And in fact, the attorney who was investigating Jeffrey Epstein submitted a bunch of subpoenas to a bunch of different people. President Trump is the only one who called him back and said, "I will tell you anything I know, whatever you need." Now, I don't know whether the meeting took place or what he said or what he knew, but could not stand what Jeffrey Epstein did. And he did have him kicked out of Mar-a-Lago, and he probably, uh, if he knew anything, the attorney took him up on his offer, but he said he's the only one who got back to him and said, "Yes, I'll whatever I know." So pay attention not to just whose name is on the flight manifest, because a lot of these people, naively took a flight Heck, who wouldn't want to ride on a private plane instead of having to fly commercial? Come on. I get that. So be careful because a lot of these names floating around. And by the way, to set the record straight, because there was a rumor about Jimmy Kimmel, not crazy about Jimmy Kimmel, but I want to set this straight. Jay Sekulow, who is a top-notch investigator, has said, no, it's not true. Jimmy Kimmel's name is not on the flight manifest or any other document so far. Now, not all of them have been released. They will be released. But not all of them have been released. And so I just wanted to set that straight because I don't, all of these rumors, all of these people, and people are going to be making up names and you're not going to know who is on it and who is off. But what I try to do is find sources like Jay Sekulow, that whom I trust to tell the truth and go with that. So, but it is going to come out. Well, one of the things that's going to come out about this, because we know this has been going on, we know this has been happening, and we know this is why they're trying to suppress it. It's not just human trafficking, it is child molestation. These people who were involved with Jeffrey Epstein beyond taking a flight, and I don't know who, I'm not going to say any names at this point, but there were children who were being basically raped and otherwise hurt and used and abused. And that's what they're trying to hide. But that's also what they're using to blackmail members of Congress, people in the media. If they went to the island and they participated in any of that, well, come on, they should be in jail. But the powers that be have been using the videotapes, and there are videotapes, and the recordings or whatever, the transcripts, to blackmail these people in Congress, to vote the way they want them to vote, to say what they want them to say. The media is complicit in all of this stuff because some of them were interested, have that. And one of the things they're trying to do in this country is, as I've said before, normalize pedophilia. They're trying to normalize it so it won't be criminalized, so they can have this weird, perverted, evil relationship with children. It's always the children. The children are the ones who suffer in all of these things because children are so close to God's heart. It's always the children. Look throughout history, it's the children. If you go back to Moses, he was saved by being put in a basket, but the other children were drowned and otherwise murdered. It's always the children. Look at the time of Jesus. Herod went after the children, trying to kill Jesus. So all of this stuff is going to come out. It's going to come out. God has promised that it will come out. He knows it all. And He has said that He has people in every entity of this government that are ready to be whistleblowers. They're ready to give their testimony. They're waiting for the time to be right. And one of the things is when people are in a place when they can believe it. Some of this stuff, when you first hear what they did to children or what they've done, you think, oh, that's not possible. That's just not possible. Believe me, it is possible, and believe me, it is true. And so all of this is going to come out. And but it is also going to be a battle. It is going to be hard fought. It's just like the 2020 elections. We're still fighting that battle. But speaking of fighting that battle, just recently, this is worth noting. Catherine Engelbrecht, if you don't know who she is one of the founders of True the Vote. And she and Greg Phillips, and Dinesh D'Souza worked on that movie, 2,000 Mules. And if you haven't seen it, find it. I think you probably find it on Frank's Speech, which is Mike Lindell's thing. But they have worked tirelessly, and they were raided, and I believe she was arrested. But in any case, Catherine Eaglebrecht and True the Vote won their lawsuit in Georgia against Stacey Abrams, Mark Elias, and the far left Fair Fight organization in a landmark election case. True the Vote declares a decisive triumph in their legal battle against Stacey Abrams' Fair Fight legal teams, led by Mark Elias. The Biden Department of Justice, a federal court in the Northern District of Georgia, affirmed that citizens have the right to lawfully petition their government in support of election integrity without fear of persecution or prosecution. This is big news. This is big news. This should affect, I would think, the January 6th people. I mean, that's exactly what they were doing. And now that the videos, a lot of the videos have been released of that. I mean, there are videos of, I just saw yesterday a video of a guy raising his hands, in the surrender mode. And the police pushed him down the stairs. I mean, it's just been ridiculous. Those people were protesting the voter fraud that they knew happened. And now we're coming up on the third anniversary of that happening. And people, you're going to hear all kinds of things about Hitler. You're going to hear all kinds of things about white supremacy. You're going to hear the worst insurrection this country has seen. Ah! It's worse than ever. Well, do your own research. I would say probably 90% of the people rotting in jail don't deserve to be there. Now, there were some, but I would also submit that the people who broke down doors or whatever were, I don't know for a fact, but I would guessing they were plants. This is what they want. This is all they have. They are so desperate to get rid of President Trump that this is all they have. This is it. And if the courts do not do the right thing, they are going to find themselves on the wrong side of God. You were elected, you were appointed a judge to be fair, to be righteous, not to be political, not to do what is the politically correct thing. And you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of God. And I don't want to be in your shoes, and I'm not standing next to you. And the Supreme Court justices in Colorado who decided that President Trump has to be taken off the ballot, I think are going to find themselves regretting that. One of the things God said is you're going to see more people stepping down. You're going to see more people either resigning or declaring that they're not going to run again. And some of them are going, we're not going to know why. They're going to give some reason why. But it's because they're corrupt, and it's because whatever it is about them is getting ready to come out or whatever. I mean, you're going to see it, and we've begun to see it. I've begun to see more and more people say they're not running for reelection. There's all kinds of things happening behind the scenes that we just don't really know anything about. But it's all coming out, and it's going to come out in the 2020 elections. We cannot, people go, oh, it's too late. It's never too late for the truth to come out. It's never too late for President Trump to be vindicated, for us to be vindicated, for all of us to be vindicated. It's never too late for that. And speaking of vindication, the Surgeon General of Florida just basically issued a statement that these mRNA vaccines should not be used, should not be given to people. You know, all of this stuff if you look back, beginning with COVID, beginning with that, probably before that, but beginning with COVID, with the lockdowns, with all of this other stuff that they did to us. And I see what is, I just want to scream. I see people in the grocery store, more people in the grocery store wearing masks than ever. What the heck, people? This is why the whistleblowers are sitting on their information, because you still have people who don't believe the corruption, what is right in front of their faces. I've seen more NFL players collapse on the football field than ever. Yes, it has happened in the past. Yes, it has. But not to this degree. Not to this degree. And when people are going, when are people going to wake up? I tell you, every time I see somebody with a mask on, I want to yank it off their face. I have a cold. Yes, I don't feel well. I'm coughing. My nose is stopped up, but it's a cold. It's not the plague. It's not the death sentence. Feels like death, but I know I've had colds before. I'll get over it. Um, One of the things I was talking about was Jeffrey Epstein, and I remember this case when the reporter Amy Robach has been vindicated for the fact that 6 years ago, she had the story of Jeffrey Epstein's island and all of that stuff. ABC wouldn't allow her to do it. They spiked the Epstein story. And now the names are coming out. Now this stuff is coming out. And she is vindicated. But she had made comments in one of those hot mic situations where she was saying, this was released way back then by James O'Keefe and Project Veritas on November 5th, 2019. In the video, she expressed her frustration with ABC News for refusing to cover the Epstein story. She had conducted exclusive interview with Virginia Giuffre back in 2016 with photographic evidence and all this other stuff. And they would not let her do it. And now the stuff is coming out 6 years later. But I think she's beginning to feel vindicated and this story is bigger and is going to be bigger and it's going to grow and people are going to be shocked by who is involved and not shocked by some of the people involved. But I think it's going to be shocking to people. I think a lot of members of Congress are going to end up having to resign or, at least not run again, announce that they're not running again. So there's all of this stuff is exploding and there's snowball effect. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep coming out. Every single day, something new is going to come out. We're going to begin to see more truth. President Trump's put out a huge information on what happened in the 2020 elections, how they cheated, what they did, how they did it. And I believe that people are finally beginning to wake up to the truth. And one of the things that's happening is they're beginning to see the damage that's caused by open borders, the damage that's caused by stuff like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, that on its face, as somebody said, it sounded like a good idea. They thought it was a good idea, but it's shown to not be. Look at the woman who was just fired or resigned, talked into resigning. I don't know how those things work, from being president of Harvard for her refusal to condemn what was the attacks on Jews, people calling for the annihilation of Jews. She refused to back down, to say, this is wrong. And so she was convinced, I guess, to resign. Well, she keeps her salary. She's still a teacher. But what is shocking to me is her forced firing was not due to all her plagiarism. Her forced firing was had nothing to do with her plagiarism, and yet she is guilty of plagiarism. I mean, huge swaths of her papers were taken from Carol Swain. But one of the things that people are beginning to realize is that this diversity, equity, and inclusion is not really what they want it to be. You can't just hire a Hispanic person because they're Hispanic, or a black person because they're black, or a because whatever it is. You can't just hire a gay person because they're gay. No, that's okay if you're trying to, you know, I, bring fairness into the workplace where maybe there hasn't been. But you have to hire qualified people. It doesn't help black women at all to have disqualified, unqualified black women in a position they have no business being in. Now, Carol Swain is a perfect example of a black woman who would be a wonderful president of Harvard or any other college, university, but they don't want her because she's conservative, but she's qualified. So, you have to hire quality people. If you want to hire more black people, fine. But make sure you don't know the damage you're doing to African Americans by hiring people who are incompetent just because they're black. That does not help black people. In fact, that hurts them because that causes people to go, well, this isn't right. It's wrong. I had a friend where I worked years ago who had hired this woman. She was African American. She hired an African American woman who turned out to be incompetent, lazy, and all those things. And the other woman, said to me, "That's the last time I hire a sister just because she's black." Yeah. You hire somebody who's incompetent. Doesn't matter if they're black, white, purple, gray, whatever. They're incompetent. They're cheaters. I mean, plagiarism should be a serious offense in a university, but it isn't. It's all about equity and inclusion. And there was a shooting recently in Iowa, and unfortunately, a sixth grader lost their lives. And the person shooting was transgender, and they're hiding that fact. They're trying to they scrub social media of everything. You know, they're trying to hide that, but let me tell you, if it had been a white person, Christian person, or whatever, it would be front page news. It would be all over. A Trump supporter, oh, heaven forbid. They would have the person hung at noon. A Trump supporter who slapped somebody would be hung at noon. I'm sorry, but that's the way it feels. So they're trying to hide the fact because they caused this. They're pushing this transgender thing. They're pushing kids to change their gender. They're pushing them to take these drugs that cause all kinds of emotional problems. They already have emotional problems. So, you know, they're doing that. Um, and it's coming back to bite them. It's going to come back to bite them. This all of this hoopla about the border, and now Eric Adams is now complaining to Governor Abbott. Go figure, Eric. You're going to lose. Governor Abbott knows way more about the law than you do. You're just making yourself look foolish. They're complaining about the immigration situation now. They're complaining about Greg. Eric Adams is suing the bus company for bringing the illegals here. I mean, to New York. The bus company, the bus company doesn't have any. They don't choose. That's just ridiculous. But that's what he's doing. So you have all this hoopla about the border, and they're talking about impeaching Mayorkas. I don't know if they're going to do that or not. They just keep talking about it because of the border situation. He should be booted out of there just because he's illegitimate. Uh, Mayorkas, but and all of anybody who's part of that so-called administration is illegitimate. But this is insane what this guy said. He claims that millions of military-aged men have invaded the southern border on Biden's watch because of, drumroll please, climate change. Because of climate change. So the climate in Mexico, the climate in, Central America, whatever, is they're suffering more from climate change than we are. I guess. I guess that's what they're saying. It's hotter down there. Yeah, it's pretty much tends to be hot in the South, but you know, of all the things. And so what he's trying to do is say climate change is the reason they're coming across them. And for some reason, it's military age men who are suffering from climate change more than any other group of people. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Military men suffer more. Really? I saw a clip the other day about Egyptians coming across the border, the southern border. That's a long trip, come from Egypt. But they're coming across and they were all men. They were all men. And they asked him, "Are you married? Do you have a wife?" And only like one or two of them were married, had children. But you didn't see any of the children with them or their wives with them. So it's just they're saying it, you know. So I don't know about that. But uh they were all Egyptians. And what do you think they're coming over here for? These military age men coming to America. What do you think they're going to try to do? Iran is very close now to being able to launch a nuclear missile. I don't know a whole lot about nuclear missiles, but weapons, but I do know that one of the things that we were trying to do was keep them from doing that. And they're very close to it. Somebody said it's not a matter of months, it's a matter of weeks that they will have the capability of doing that. So there's anybody who doesn't see what is going on. When I see some of these news pundits, no matter what news they're on, saying things like, don't the Biden people understand what damage is being caused by all these illegals coming across the border? Are they so incompetent? And I'm thinking, are you so incompetent that you don't understand why they're doing it? Are you so incompetent that you can't see beyond the nose on your face the purpose and plan of bringing all these people across the border? Do you really think that it's just about ginning up the vote? Do you really think it's just about increasing the population so that you can have more, representation in Congress? Do you really think it's all just about that? Really? You don't see that all these people coming across are military age men? You don't see that a lot of these people coming across are Muslim? You don't see that these are the same people who stand there and chant death to America, death to Israel? They have sleeper cells all over this country. Are you that naive? Are you that ignorant of what's going on? Or are you just afraid to say it? Are you just afraid that your network or whatever is going to come down on you and fire you if you speak the truth? Are you really that afraid to say the 2020 elections were stolen and not because the CIA covered up Hunter Biden's laptop? The FBI? Because that's what they're trying to say now. They're saying, well, because the FBI covered up the laptop, that's why the 2020 elections were stolen. That probably had some effect on the voting. but it didn't have any effect on the stealing. Well, it may have made the stealing a little harder, but I have really lost a great deal of respect for people, well, for the news people who are out there saying, I don't know why he's doing it. It doesn't make sense. It's not incompetence. It's only made to look like it's incompetence. It's not incompetent. It's all purpose. It's all part of a plan. Yes, it is. And but they will not succeed. Now, I'm warning you, it will look like they are succeeding, just like it looked like the Egyptians were going to catch up to the Israelites. In fact, the Egyptians thought that whatever gods they believed in had parted the Red Sea so they could go after the Israelites. It looked like, it appears as if, but never, ever, ever think that something is the way it appears. God will, God will do what he said he would do. He is doing it. He is working. And there will be a point where we will be able to say, those Egyptians that you saw today, you will see no more. And I don't mean somebody's going to tell me I'm racist. I'm not talking about Egyptians. I'm just talking about the globalists, the people who want us dead. It will look bad. But trust me, God will do what he said he would do. You know, we just have to believe, and we have to fight, and we have to stand firm, and we have to continue to declare that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. He cannot lose. He will not lose. And I know I keep saying it. I keep saying it because we all need to be reminded of how big God is, how powerful he is, how much he loves us. First, he wants to rid us of the corruption in the church. Believe me, it's there. In the countries and the governments. And then he will restore President Trump to his rightful place. And he will boot out all of those people who were elected illegally or by, stealing or whatever method that wasn't right. But he also wants us to stand firm, to believe in him, to do what we can. Look at people like Catherine Eaglebread and Greg Phillips. They are fighting, and Mike Lindell, fighting tooth and nail in the courts. Now, not all of us have to go to court to fight, but we all have mouths. We all have the ability to spread the word. We all have the ability to speak out. We all have the ability to let members of Congress know how we feel. We all have the ability to encourage President Trump, to encourage those people who are doing good things. We all have the ability to give some money to Operation Freedom or, any of these places that are working with human or against human trafficking. Operation Underground, I think it is. We all have the ability to do something. We can all volunteer to be a voting, a poll watcher. It's all within our realm or our ability. So, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I would like to say, as I always do, God bless President Trump. God bless Bibi. God bless the United States of America. And may God bless every one of you. Thank you. And until next week, I hope by next week my voice is a little better.